Good morning, everybody. Anthony Mentavia here from magneticmemorymethod.com. Let's talk about remembering what you hear. It's a very, very important topic. I see John is here. Hello, John. Thanks for saying hello in the chat. If you're joining us, be interactive. That's what this is all about. So hit the thumbs up. Let me know where you are in the world, what you're doing, what you're thinking, how you're feeling. If you're watching the replay, same thing applies. You can get in the discussion after the fact below and let me know that you can hear, that you can see, and generally this is about interaction. So when you have questions, pop them into the chat. I will see them here. Do my best to catch up and be the generator of your action. Iduk is here. Stefan from Thailand. Iduk was in Venezuela. Wow, amazing, amazing, amazing. Today, our representative of memory is The Flash, always on time, right? Except in his personal life, which is, what we want to be able to do is have our superhero powers in our personal life and our professional life when it comes to memory. So, forgive me if I take a drink from time to time, but I got to keep the old throat nice and loose and limber and limp. So, listening is very, very important, of course, and we have some challenges in the 21st century because of the nature of content and how it's changed so much. But you know what? We don't want to romanticize the past because chances are people have had a hard time listening back in the old times as well. And it really comes down to you deciding what kind of person you want to be. And so, listen, if you're the kind of person who wants to listen better and remember what you hear, then I'm glad that you're here. Hit the thumbs up. Get subscribed to this channel if you aren't already. Click the little bell so you're notified when we go live the next time. I see we got Stefan is here. Oh, I said hello to Stefan. Daniel's here. Aloha, Danielle. Tadeus. I was in the midst of listening to Remember It by Nelson Dellis when I saw the notification. All right. So if you haven't heard it, Nelson Dellis was on the Magnetic Memory Method podcast. And go and listen to that episode because we dive deep into some of the things that he talks about in that book. And he told me he really enjoyed that interview. And so I think you will too, because if he did, how could you not, as the author of Remember It? Andy says hi from Singapore. Wow, Singapore. All right. So keep letting me know where you're from. Keep hitting that thumbs up. And let's just talk about this before we get into any specific tips. Let's try and frame this a little bit because why matters, right? Why matters? Why would we do this? If we don't know why, that helps the evil Dr. Forget freeze your memory and you won't be able to learn as much. So we got to go through why. We always want to have the good old values of Edgar the Elephant. And here he is, Edgar the Elephant, always at war with the evil Dr. Forget, who's coming for your memory all the time. We're never free from him. We always have to practice, and we always have to have our superhero skills, our superhero memory. All right, Ryan's here from Ohio. Wow, I love Ohio. I've been in parts of Ohio. Great place. Reclaiming Life. Awesome. Privyet. From south of Buffalo, New York. Awesome, awesome. Arasaz from Southern California. All right, so we got a great international audience. Love that, love that. And again, if you're watching the replay, get involved in the discussion with a comment in the chat box. And there are some links to different resources that we'll be talking about today that you're going to want to follow up as well. We can't cover everything under the sun, but if you put these together, you're going to have a great package of additional trainings, and they'll help you with remembering what you hear. All right, so why is this important? Well, one of the things is I had a situation that sort of inspired today's thing where I was at a group discussion, and there was one fellow there in particular who bragged, and please don't do this because it doesn't look cool, but he bragged that his preference was for 10-minute videos on subjects that really require more depth of discussion than that. And this reminded me of something from back when I taught my second course at university, where a young woman came in and she bragged that she was taking a course in film studies because she'd never read an entire book from cover to cover. And that was somehow the cool thing to do. That was the cool way to be. And so these two sort of things fused in my mind somehow, particularly because this particular person was very interruptive, and like there's nothing wrong with many of the things that were being said there, but when you pressed him for details on particular things, he didn't have anything more than more sound bites that clearly came from 10-minute videos. So even if he remembered what the heck was going on in those 10-minute videos, it had the behavior of 10-minute videos that had about the depth of knowledge and understanding and processing that you would expect of someone who brags about their big old, preference for 10-minute videos. Now, I don't want to be on my high horse here. I watch 10-minute videos too. But I generally tend to make longer videos. So congratulations to all of us on 19,000 subscribers. I want to thank you all for that. That is proof in the pudding that longer videos actually do have an audience in the world. And I'm very much protective of what I watch. And when I see things, it's more like not, oh my goodness, that's 2 hours long. It's more like, oh my goodness, that's only 10 minutes. Do I even really want to get started? Because you know how that's going to go with this kind of like, hey guys, I got 3 tips for you. That kind of stuff, which just like, it has its place. But often when it comes to intellectual matters, when it comes to how you're going to improve your memory and so forth, you got to wonder, what meaningful training could possibly be contained in something so short? And this matters in memory in particular because information is vast and your memory is vaster than the information that's out there. I got a number of books I want to show you today, but the story of you, the brain, David Eagleman here, he says that basically we have a zettabyte in our brain, right? And that is more than all the information on the internet combined that our brain has. So our brain is actually vaster and more capable of all the information in the world. But if we are training it to deal with only snippets, snippetization, we are essentially de-skilling that vast memory, and we are fragmenting it, we are damaging it, we are dishonoring it, and we are actually leading ourselves to speak like that. And it just doesn't play out. It never will. It never can. It never has. And it won't. It won't. It will not lead to a healthy outcome for the human species. And I'm happy to be totally wrong about that. And we'll talk about being totally wrong in a minute. But pretty much not sure that one could be wrong about this because all the proof is in the pudding of your own brain and your own behaviors. So I really want to thank that particular fellow at for bragging about his 10-minute video preference because we thank him all for this because it inspired me to think about this. And of course, I have lots of training on this already. Links to those destinations are down below. And let's see here. I want to check in with the chat frequently. If you're just joining us, let me know where you are in the world. Get active. It's good for your brain. How do I know this? Well, it's because your brain is made up of cells and neural networks. And the more you exercise them, the more you're engaged, the more they open up, right? Everything from actual tip-tap typing or diddly-diddly-dee or whatever it is that you would do, mousing around and sort of that sort of stuff, actually focusing, being engaged, being part of it, that actually opens up these networks. Positive and negative ions flow through the neurons, woo, and they actually help you perceive more because you're switched on. So who wants to get switched on? Let me know in the chat if you're excited for what we're going to share today so that you can remember more of what you hear. Or are we going to play the zombie game and be switched off? Let me know in the chat as I check in. All right, so Tadeus is in Houston. Awesome, thanks for adding that detail. John's in Cleveland. Awesome, awesome. Reclaiming Life SoCal says one of the favorite places I've been to all places internationally. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Wow, not a single person says yes, they're excited for today. What? Oh, all right. Well, while I'm waiting for some excitement here, some interest, some hell yes, let me give you an update on something that I'm working on for you all. I got the legendary Dr. Bruno First. You can remember. This is huge, man. This is intense. So this is going to be coming up. I've read this in its entirety, and now I'm reading The Practical Way to a Better Memory. Oh, you don't see the beautiful yellow because of our technological setup here. But it's great learning a lot from Dr. Bruno First and filling in the map of my own brain, of the memory tradition, particularly in the 20th century. The more that I know, the more that I can help you know. And of course, I know a lot of people already know Dr. Bruno First because they ask me about him all the time. And guess what? Now when you ask me about him, I'm on the path to having a detailed answer, long form content answer, because that's the only thing that does justice to the real knowledge here. So I see a couple of people switched on here. Ryan says, I'm switched on. Reclaiming Life says, oh baby, oh baby. All right, Dr. Metivier, turn me on. Okay, I'm starting to hear some music in my head. Down, 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 down. Oh baby, baby. Okay, I'm not gonna sing. Shouldn't probably be singing. Uh, Daniel says excitement in all caps. Great. Tina's here. X Bluebells switched on from Indianapolis. Awesome, awesome. Stefan says excited. Era says is excited. Great, great, great. So expect more calls for participation because we know it's all good for us. And of course, 80-20 rule, right? Everybody knows the pair two principle, Price's law, whatever, all these different fancy words for you'll be in one or the other. Arizaz says, when you go live, I get a rush. Great. Uh, Thank you for sharing that. I get a rush too. I get a rush from helping people out. And so if you're new here and you want to know more about the practical way to a better memory, which is amazing book, it's invisible, partly invisible, and you can remember. I'm just waiting on a third book as I get through the second piece that I'm going through, and I'm going to do a mega review of the Bruno First uh, catalog, right? As much as I can get. And I wonder if Bruno First is actually his name. He might be. He seems like a real funny guy. There may be a little reference there to, you know who, Giordano Bruno. Perhaps first. We'll see. We'll see what I'm going to say about all this coming up. But I think he's making a little bit of a pun there. But maybe his name really is Bruno First. Maybe. I remember meeting Umberto Eco and having him sign the name of the rose, and he made a little indication there that Umberto Eco isn't his name. And so I've talked about that before, that story. So you can go back through the catalog for more about that. All right. So let's dive in here. If you're joining us, hit thumbs up, put in your questions, get subscribed. If you're watching the replay, pop in any points that you want to share or questions that you have in the discussion below. And come visit me at magneticmemorymethod.com/YT if you don't have the free memory improvement kit. And it has videos, PDFs, all designed to help you build memory palaces, make them the right way, and learn all about the guidelines, essentially, for proper association, because association is key, and we're going to talk about that today. Okay, so, and again, thank you for 19K subscribers. That's really, really great. And as Reclaiming Life says, yeah, you can do /snowman also, although that skews a few things. That's why we use different endings in different places. Let's see. So, observing thinking out loud really, really helps us. So when it comes to listening, I'm thinking in my mind of lectures and debates and interviews, but also, things like audiobooks. This works as well. And in a way, audiobooks still are thinking out loud. It's just more packaged and prepared thinking out loud in the form of chapters and a structure to bring you through an argument. In either case, one of the things that we're often doing is we're thinking along with competing views. And it's very, very healthy for us to do this in real time. So I still, from time to time, 2x content, double speed content, but I find that overall, it's better to listen to it in real time, precisely so that I can think along with either the argument or the presentation of evidence or the exposition, but also so that I can think along with competing views. So when I'm listening to an interview or I'm listening to a debate, having it in 2x is okay for pure consumption, but it's not okay for thinking along and having this effect of observing thinking out loud, drawing conclusions in real time, and then encoding it. So even if you don't encode, you'll have better memory, I think you'll find in your own practice. I certainly do. I remember better what's there if I listen to it in real time, observe human gestures in real time as the micro expressions bring forth extra additional information about what things mean, context, and context slips in and you seep in it as you consume the content. So it's very, very important for memory. You can have all the memory tricks in the world. I don't think you're going to have the same possibility to encode while you're listening along in 2 times. I've done lots of experiments around it. If anything, slow things down. And in the Magnetic Memory Method Masterclass, there's some training on slowing recordings down for language learning, which is very, very powerful. So Tina says, I recently reviewed your free memory course, really enjoyed it a second time. Awesome. I recommend people take all courses at least twice. Reclaiming said there should be more apps that give debates apologetics. I'd love to know what you mean by apps about that. That's interesting. Apparently there's something called Across the Aisle that makes sure that you at least are receiving content from both sides of the aisle. I think it's called Across the Aisle. I didn't memorize what it was called, but in any case, there's something like that that might be in the direction of what you're talking about. Let's see. So this is really, really important too because it naturally exercises your memory. When you're just juggling multiple thoughts and you're focused on being engaged, being involved, you're hearing multiple viewpoints, this just will naturally exercise your memory because you're making connections. And you're needing to have what is said next match up or contrast what happened before. So you're getting natural memory exercise. Really, really, really important. It just will naturally exercise your memory. So keep that in mind. Keep in mind too that you are what you remember in the moment you need to remember. So the quality of your engagement, the quality of what you're understanding, is going to have a lot to do with what you remember about what was said as things go on. And again, you'll get natural memory training, but you also want to think like, if you're somehow lost or you feel like, oh, this is boring or whatever, the place to point the finger is not first at the speaker. The place to point the finger is at you, right? Because you might have lost the thread because you're looking at multiple apps or you got 46 tabs open or you're trying to live your life off of a small screen or whatever it is. Number one responsibility is never with the content creator or the speaker or the lecturer. It's with you first. Now, that doesn't mean that they don't take responsibility for things. It just means that you start with you first because chances are you're the problem. Okay, so keep that in mind and keep in mind that you are what you can remember in the moment you need to remember it. And memory training builds a better you right now for the future you. So whenever you're using some of the things we'll talk about today, you're building a better you for the future to come. Memory training is not a one-time deal. You keep at it, right? It's like, the old Zig Ziglar thing about, people complain that motivation wears out. Well, that's why we recommend it every day, just like bathing, right? So memory training is something I recommend every day, even just a little bit of it, because it wears out, right? Like it's a muscle. It'll get weaker if you don't show up to it again and again and again. And think of it this way. Everything that you do now makes for a better memory in the future. And everything that you do in the future makes for a better memory in the future, always yet to come. So keep training your memory. You don't have to use that word training if that's somehow painful for you. And if it is painful, no doubt, because there's something in the brain called the insular cortex that when you're asked to make an effort can create a little pain response. But you can actually train yourself to not respond to that pain response with a flight. You can actually fight it, and you don't have to fight it if you're relaxed. So that's why I teach a lot of relaxation and meditation things to just remove the struggle. Tina says, X Bluebells, hey, I only have one tab open and listening to Dr. Metivier. Thumbs up for that. Thank you for inspiring us all. And I wish I could be the same, but to run this operation, I got to have a bunch of tabs and windows open. But it's an exception to the rule, and it's for a just cause. Reclaiming Life says, Muslims have awesome apps that feature apologetic debates. I'm not Muslim, but I love any debates in apologetics. Muslim Central is great. Okay, cool. I'll have to check that out. Very interesting. Austin asks, any thoughts on remembering how songs sound accurately or thoughts on ear training? Yeah, well, Austin, great question. One of the things you can do is have a key. So, for example, if you memorize all the notes of Stand By Me, which is, pretty simple, dun, 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 If you know those notes, then when you hear something else, you can mentally and out loud match them. And that's just a great general way of ear training. The other thing too, like if you have a guitar, is to study the fretboard and really just study one string, how that operates all the way up. And it's not so much memorizing each note, but you can actually go and use the major to memorize the hertz of every single note, which may train your ear better, just simply because you're making a kind of synesthesia between your conceptual mode and your auditory mode in your brain. But even just studying a single string all the way up the fret, it can be profound. And then you go, from the E string to the A string, and to the G string to the D string, and so forth. I typically stop there because I'm a bassist, but obviously there are more depending on how many strings you got. I used to play a 21-string sitar that had these really cool hooks where you could take away 2 of the bass strings and turn it into a 19-string sitar, which is amazing. Good thing that I'm not one for missing objects. Otherwise, I'd miss that sucker because it was beautiful. Okay, so I hope that helps you out, Austin. Let me know if you have more questions. If you're just joining us, hit that thumbs up. Let me know in the chat where you are in the world, what you're doing, what you're thinking. And if you have questions like Austin's, feel free to pop them in, or just general observations. And let's carry on. Why does this matter? Why does it matter that you need to train your memory frequently? Why does it matter that you need to focus on a better you now for the better you in the future? It's very, very simple. An unknowable future is coming, and it's coming without your consent or approval. So you got to be the best possible version of yourself. You've got to, because the future is coming, and the success, the pleasantness, the bliss of whoever you are going to be all comes whether you like it or not. So the challenges, the changes, I notice myself being in my 40s now, dealing with 40s things. And so the future is always, always coming. Always. So be prepared, be prepared. As I often say, you want to be like the samurai, prepared to execute any last move, even with your head cut off. Why? Because if you're trained, if you're fit, you have the best possible chances of succeeding. Now, we'll talk about fitness in terms of survival of the fittest and all that jazz in a minute, because the thing I have to say there may surprise you. It's a little bit different than you might expect. Rodrigo says, "Hi, Dr. Metivier. Could you do a live talk about Method of Loci in the Middle Ages?" Specifically in the Middle Ages. Well, that is in the books. By the way, at the end of this, I'm going to give you a little bit of 2019 preview. So if you're interested in the direction of where things are coming and going, be sure to stick around. And your suggestions have meaning and value, so bring them on. And let me know, Rodrigo, what your dates are for the Middle Ages. I ask because it's not always so clear what people mean when they throw out that term. So if you're talking about what Francis Yates covers in The Art of Memory, for example, then let me know if that's what you mean. Specificity matters. Remember that. I said it. Specificity matters. And I was very blessed and honored to have a advisor during my graduate years who I did some directed reading. I did a directed reading with, but also an actual seminar. And she was a historian, and she said, "It drives me crazy when people just throw out terms like the Middle Ages. Give me the years," because she's a historian, right? So I love that. Or she said, "It drives me crazy when people say back then," right? And she's right. She's right. Part of the skill of remembering what you hear is actually also pushing for specificity. So I mentioned this guy who bragged about his preference for 10-minute videos. He had this thing about the West, right? And I stopped him and I just said, what the hell does that even mean? Because it was just this obvious empty phrase that, we do this. We generalize in normal conversation. But when you're having like a group discussion, philosophical matters, you've got to be more specific than the West, right? Like it just falls apart. It becomes empty platitudes, and we've got to be specific. So give me some years there, Rodrigo, and we'll see if we can make it happen. Shane, my man, good to see you. Thanks for getting into the Magnetic Memory Method Masterclass and your kind words there. So glad that you're here. Really wonderful. I just love you guys so much. So, the way that this all works is that the more that you are involved in this world, the more the value of everything just increases and maximizes because you're in the game. So the name of the game is to be active, to be engaged, to train your memory, and like I said just a little bit before, to be the best possible self in the future. You really, really want to be in the moment using the techniques as much as possible, precisely because the unknowable future is coming without your approval or consent. So let's get into the specific tips here I got for you. If you want to remember what it is that you hear in real time, you want to have memory palaces. Number one thing. And there are people out there who are thinking about having memory palaces. They are dreaming about having memory palaces. They have the desire to have memory palaces, but they're caught somehow. I do all I can to get you in the door, and all you got to do is start with the free course at magneticmarymethod.com/YT. Link for that down in the description below. Why should you do it? Because there's an actual path that you can take that is coming from experience, from knowledge from the Middle Ages, for example. I was never a memory competitor, although I did compete. And wow, I still am amazed by how I did, given the conditions. But I went back into the tradition, and I just thought, this competition's great. They win prizes and stuff. But what did the old dudes do to memorize those books, right? And so that's what you're getting in this course, is the real sort of deal from the ancient tradition. And of course, I've spent so many hours speaking with memory competitors, the best memory athletes on the planet, and just diving deep. And yesterday, Idris Zogai and I had a wonderful podcast interview that's on the Magnetic Mary Method podcast. So if you haven't heard that yet, you're going to want to hear it, because we dig deep into his expertise, and we talk about virtual memory palaces. We talk about apps and what would make an actual, authentic, useful memory app, and what he's doing with Memotopia, it's called. Just sounds incredible, and I can't wait to actually see this happen. It's so important. It's so important. So you want to have memory palaces. And also you want to have multiple memory palaces. Do not expect to be a master baker by baking one loaf of bread. It's not going to happen. Spatial memory needs exercise. Spatial memory needs exploration. You need to feel it and see it for the asset that it is, and you need to work it. Yurgalem, in our mastermind group, she just posted some new memory palaces. Just with a simple tip, she went and she found 3 more, right? It's amazing. And she just did exactly what is supposed to be done, posted them in the group, bam! And so, awesome, Yurgalem. Thank you for that. And then you can get to how to use memory palaces impromptu. And I would really suggest that you know how to make them in the non-impromptu magnetic way before you start throwing out impromptu ones. But, it's your calendar, it's your clock. You figure out when you want to do it, but get there, because it's really, really important to be able to make impromptu memory palaces. And just go deep into it. Define what you want to do, establish the memory palaces, exercise using memory palaces, and practice with information that you love. That's how you go deep with these techniques. Let's check in with our chat here. Ryan's Internet Adventure says, Anthony, you finally created me to create memory palaces in my foreign language vocabulary memorization. Ryan, that's great. Awesome. So tell me what took so long. Give me some clues so that when we meet another person like yourself, like what would you have needed to hear to make that process, that switch, happen faster? Because this is the ne plus ultra of learning. And we've got all the science in the world if you are moved and motivated by science. We got all the cheerleading in the world if you're moved and motivated by cheerleading. We got all that you need in order to do it. So I need to know from yourself, like, what was that pivotal thing that you heard that finally made the change? And if the answer is 17 hours of live streaming did it, then that's what I want to know, because then we'll just do 17 hours of live streaming. There's no problem. Unless I fall down dead, which wouldn't be a bad way to go when you think about it. All right. So you also want to practice the skills in advance. You want to have the memory palaces. You want to be good at encoding. You want to know how to use them impromptu, be good at encoding, and you want to know how to reduce the cognitive load, reduce it to the bare minimum. You do not want to be one of these people who get so fantastically involved in the memory palace that you're actually just creating a job for yourself, a task. It's not meant to be a giant task. And if you get it right, you understand it, your memory palaces happen fast. 2 to 3 minutes, 2 to 5 minutes max. It's just boom. You should have dozens of those suckers at a rate of about 2 to 5 minutes. Most people find when they take the training 2 to 5 hours, they have the minimum suggested amount. And after that, you're good to go. And you just practice. You practice. And then you start with the impromptu stuff. So now, when you go to a lecture, when you put on an audiobook, when you listen to a debate or whatever, apologetics, as Reclaiming Life says, he likes, then you go through your index of memory palaces and you're like, I'm going to listen to, Waking Up podcast or whatever it is. And you go, what's going to be the memory palace as I listen? You'll have plenty to choose from. Bang. And you just, as you're listening, you hear something you want to memorize, you encode it. You encode while listening, right? And to encode while listening is something that you've just got to do. So like how exactly that it's done, is you'll hear something, you isolate the piece of information, and then you start to associate with it. And your ability to associate, the speed at which you can associate and do it in real time, is just going to come from practice. What's one of the best ways to develop the skills for speed and practicing? Learn how to memorize a deck of cards. And that's cool because you're dealing with multiple levels of information at the same time. And that's ultimately what this skill is. It's like they say you shouldn't multitask, but there is one exception to that rule, and that is mnemonics. Mnemonics is multitasking at the end of the day. It is bringing together at least, how many fingers do I have on this hand? 6 modes and a 7th mode of space, right? And Megastan Topos Pantagar Kori tells us, or Thales tells us, space is ultimate because it contains all things. And space, the space of your brain, the space of the world, is what's going to contain your practice. So there's going to be someone in space talking, and then you're going to have your memory palace ready to go, maybe even more than one memory palace, depending on the nature of the incoming information. And then you're going to hear something like a date, 1797, for example, something like this, right? And then you're going to go, okay, 1797, boom, right there in the memory palace. What's your image for 17? Oh, well, in my case, I'm going to use Tucker Max this time. I got a couple, right? He's going to have some tax, and he's going to push him into Peter Parker, right? Because, that's what we need for 97, right? And bang, it's right there in the memory palace. And then whatever amount of stuff that you do, while you continue to listen, you're going to hold that in mind, and you're going to then encode the next thing. And then you got to do effective review. And you can do review while you're listening in real time and still pay attention. And this is a great alternative to what usually happens when you're listening, which is listen, mind wandering about the past, mind wandering about the future, mind wandering about what you could be doing sitting on the beach right now instead of listening to this. Oh, back to this point, and then oh, and then my phone rang, it's too loud. Here's a tip for you. Don't listen to your podcast, don't listen to your audiobooks, don't listen to anything on a device that rings. I have 2 iPhones precisely for this purpose, because there's the study iPhone, there's the learning iPhone, and then there's the call me iPhone, right? And the two do not meet, because learning is precious. Learning is not for interruption. So sometimes I get these calls or emails that say, oh, the Magnetic Memory Method podcast is too quiet. I have to turn it up loud, and then my phone rings. Well, this is the world's tiniest little violin crying just for you. And I mean that with tough love and humor and so forth. But what the heck are you doing listening to information you want to learn from on something that's going to interrupt you in the first place? This is called intellectual learning suicide. Get off the phone and listen on a machine for learning, right? This is going to be the make or break it in the future. There's going to be this class of people who arise, who are really, really smart. Now, smart doesn't necessarily mean successful, but they're probably going to be more intellectually developed simply because they know how to divide the learning device from the media, social world device. And I highly recommend that you do whatever it takes. So that might mean like airplane mode or whatever the heck they call it. I don't know what it is. But for me, it's 2 individual devices. And really, think twice. I said it before today. Before you point your finger at the content creator, point it at yourself first. That's a very good practice, because really, if the issue is that you can't listen to something because your phone might ring too loud, where's the real problem here? What the heck are you doing listening to something you want to learn from on something built to interrupt you? Woo! That's called stupidity in a box, you know? And Gilles Deleuze, the French philosopher, he said, if there's one thing worthy of hatred, it's stupidity. Okay? So I'll get off my high horse here, but I think that we need this tough love in the world, because people are starting to develop preferences for their knowledge and learning that do not gel with what knowledge and learning really is. It's uninterrupted. Okay? And it's sustained, right? It's sustained, and it's silent, and it's something that you give just the most holy reverence to. Nothing should get between you and what you're learning from, ever. And if you complain about an interruption that you yourself have the power to stop, that's where the blame goes. That's where the responsibility goes. And yes, we've done something to change the volume on the podcast so that all future episodes are better, and I do all that I can to adhere to that, because I'm not totally stupid myself, and I do want it to be comfortable for people. But at the end of the day, where does the problem really lie there? Sorry, that was that was a goofy little laugh. But things are emerging as they emerge in real time here. Thank everybody for being here. Thanks for your chats. I'm going to catch up with them in a second here. Hit the thumbs up if you're just joining us. Make use of this chat for your comments. This is about engagement. This is about us talking together. This is about a little bit of ranting from time to time. And let's see here. I want to catch up with these beautiful, wonderful, glorious chats. I'm so grateful for you all and what you contribute to this community, because, as we'll talk about in a little bit, survival of the fittest is not just about competition. All right, so let's see here. Where were we? Man, we got lots of stuff going on here. Thank you for that. All right, so Reclaiming Life says to Shane, glad to see a new masterclass student here. There's so much to gain from the live streams and podcasts above and beyond the masterclass. Exactly. Thank you for that. X Bluebell says, I use my own body to remember 2 spiritual chants for when I go hiking. One on the one side, the right side, one down the left side. I keep confusing them until I did that. Awesome. Yeah, the body makes for a great memory palace. We've done some training on body memory palaces before, and Adolfo, I don't know if he's here right now, but he took it and ran with it. We what you get to do is you get to combine these things very, very differently as you go along, and you come up with these wonderful innovations that you could never expect would be possible. Sometimes I read these reviews of new memory training books and so forth, and people are like, there's nothing new in here and all this sort of stuff. You might be right about that particular book, but there is so much new coming all the time in memory world. Innovation is always possible, especially when you understand that innovation is the combination of existing parts, and creativity is the combination of existing parts. Speaking of creativity, if you're in the masterclass, I'm going to talk about this a little bit later in more depth if you want to learn more about what's coming in 2019, but what is already here in 2019, it's already in the masterclass right now, the new course called Visualization Mastery. Now, just to experiment with it, it's in a kind of a weird part of the masterclass, which is the worksheets tab. So look for worksheets, click on that, and you'll see there's a new course there. And I'm really excited to see how you like this new style. And if you take it and you've ever had a problem with visualization, this course is going to solve it. And I'd love your feedback on the new style. Do you find it more engaging? What does engaging mean? Not that you were like, oh, wow, these videos were short enough. And, oh, wow, this moving stuff on the screen and takeaway images and so forth, they were engaging. What I mean by engaging is, did you finish it from beginning to end? Did you take notes? And did you put it into action? And did you get results? Because if it's just popcorn, ooh, cool movie about visualization, well, that's just a recipe for the evil Dr. Forget to get hold of your soul. What you do, here's how to take a video course. Click play on the first video with your memory journal. Make notes. Then click play on video 2. Make notes. three, four, five, etc. And then review your notes and take some actions based on the things. And I think I might keep it on that page because then all the worksheets for the visualization exercises are already there. Anyway, lots of improvements coming. And if you're in the masterclass and you want to take that course, it's there for you right now. More things coming. All right. So that was coming from the idea of new innovations, and new innovations are coming all the time. So Ryan's Internet Adventure says, I usually think of a palace and create Loci on the fly as I come across new vocab words through reading and listening, but it works perfectly, especially with the aid of Excel files. Great, great, great. A little bit more preparation. I think you'll find like preparation in advance will probably be the more winning strategy as you go along, but making it up as you go along is okay. Just improve over time. X Bluebell says Impromptu Memory Palace. Yeah, there's just such a great thing to have that skill. Reclaiming Life says I've been learning so many new memory palaces from my dreams since I'm always lucid. Bam! Awesome, great. So yeah, Harvinder. Oh, last we checked in, he was 85. I think he said memory palaces he discovered from his dreams. Austin asks thoughts on information fatigue. Great question. Let me know more what you mean, though. Like, where are you fatigued? Which kind of information? Chances are a lot of people are fatigued because they're watching 2 times information in 10-minute videos. I don't know that for certain, but I find that if I want to go the distance, preference long form content, I like to be comfortable, relaxed, either sit in a kind of meditation pose or recline and take notes, mind map, draw, doodle. There's a note-taking resource down below. It can help with information fatigue a lot, but I need to know more about what you mean. So go ahead and post that. Stefan says, can kids use memory palaces to remember things? For example, from school. Is a 17-year-old too young to start using memory palaces? Or sorry, a 7-year-old. Yeah, kids can. There's 2 podcasts with young people on the Magnetic Memory Method podcast. So if you put in the Google Memory Palace Magnetic Kids, 2 of them should come up. One is with Alicia and one is with Imogen. And they're both incredible to listen to. They're 10. I have myself coached somebody at around age 6 and it didn't go too well, but basic association should be fine at as young as grade 6. And you'll want to listen to the new interview with Idris Sogai where he talks about helping kids associate, and they're so good with association. So Memory Palace might be a little, like 10 seems to be fine in my experience with these matters so far, but 6 or 7 in my experience seems a bit too much, but it's up to the parent. Look, my personal stance on this is don't expect your kids to do what you're not doing. And so I would suggest that you do something like memorize the times tables and then show the kids, okay, so here by the door, we've got 4 shoes. Why? Because 2 times 2 is 4, right? And walk them through that way and then ask them later, what's 2 times, like, why is 2 times 2 4 or whatever? And then they'll say, well, it's because there's 4 shoes by the door. And then you're using Memory Palace with rhyming and you know, that sort of thing, something like that. But honestly, I'm not that experienced with kids, but I do have parents on the show who have kids who are using memory palaces, and so you can look that up. Oh heck, why don't I just look it up for you and pop those links in right now? So I'll just use Google. So Imogen magnetic memory method. Imogen Ayres, if memory serves. That should be right. Typely type. Okay, that's coming right up for you there, Stefan. I'll just check to make sure. Yeah, very, very lovely Father Kevin is his name. And then we have magnetic memory method and Alicia. Tap the mind of a 10-year-old memory palace master. She and her dad talk about using Minecraft for memory palaces as well. So that's kind of a cool interview. Check those both out and enjoy. Let me know what you think. Leave a comment there. Share them around if you find them useful. And I'd love to hear from you further about that. Ryan, okay, thank you. You say it takes months to be convinced. I used to make associations on keyword mnemonics, but when you add location to them, it's way more effective. And you also keep them in an Excel. Great, great, great. So thanks for that feedback. Months, okay. Well, we got months in the past, we got months in the future. Let's keep going. Oh, Christian is here. What's up, Magnetic Mania? Good to see you. Thanks for saying hello, Christian. Always good to see you. John says, kids absorb concepts readily. Indeed. Ryan says, I was convinced by Alex Mullen, who was like me and used to use only the keyword mnemonic, but then he experimented with adding Loci, and it showed to be helpful even without a lot of recall rehearsal. Yeah, Alex is great. Alex has been on the podcast, and another thing in 2019 coming is Alex has created a graduation bonus for Magnetic Memory Method students. So figuring out how to put those there, but we've got most of the bonuses done, shot, edited. They're amazing. And Alex Mullen, he created one, and I'm just like, where do I put this? And so forth. So that's coming, but we've got 7 working towards a total of 12. So Christian agrees about not complaining about your own choice to not regulate your mechanical settings. Awesome. I like it when I'm not the only one. Ryan also agrees. There's a book coming out called Digital Minimalism. Okay, that sounds cool. And after reading Deep Work, I'm looking forward to reading it. Awesome. Digital Minimalism. That's kind of how I live my life, and man, whew, I recommend it. It's so good. And sometimes the wave of being a little bit more integrated with the tech comes, and you just got to ride with it. But I prefer to be as free from the machines as possible. And I suspect the rulers of the planet do also, if you know what I mean. Let's see. John says, I've moved to always having a little moleskin and pen in my pocket for notes and review. No more apps. I'm finding it works so much better. Awesome. Thanks for sharing that experience. And that's ultimately what we need, right? We need to have more people sharing their experience with this, because that's what I've found. I use a lot of technology. There's no doubt about it. There's lots of cool stuff, and there's lots of ways to interact and engage and so forth. But at the end of the day, I don't think the brain has caught up with the technology yet. But we evolved over many, many, many years. Not just with books, but like actually creating vellum, for example. Like maybe this is getting a little bit too speculative, but when you look at the length of time that we spent with chiseling stone, wax tablets, preparing vellum from animals and stuff, like we evolved with the tools by which we've recorded our information. And now we've got this new stuff, and we haven't really caught up with screens yet, that even though we are doing really good with them, we're still at a hand's removed from them in terms of the biological integration. So there may or may not be something to this, but we do know that there's something to us not being able to remember as well from digital, and that's called digital dementia, sometimes digital amnesia. I prefer digital amnesia because it points to a cure. Digital dementia doesn't sound reversible to me, but those are not my terms. They were created by others who have huge research budgets, and they didn't just throw that out there because they wanted to. They threw it out there because science helps us explore and find things that are true. And when they're not convenient, they're still true, right? So we got to really take them into consideration. So I'm very excited, John, that you have moved to moleskin and pen in favor over apps. But we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater either. So this is not about becoming Luddites. It's just about balance. Daniel says, is it basically the case that the memory palace has to be drawn by hand in the beginning? I have lots and lots of written type lists and connections, like for cards and a 00 to 99. Look, has to is not the way to think about it. It's just, have you tried it, noted the difference? Have you tried it long enough to actually note the difference, to see how that it can work for you? Have you done enough? If you can create and manage them mentally, great. There's no complaint here. Most people can't, though. I couldn't. There was no way that, now I create a lot of them, and I still kick myself when I didn't draw them, because they're just not as good, and they're just not as remembered that they even exist if they haven't gone through that touch of having drawn them. It's the same thing with recall rehearsal. So yeah, to get back to Ryan's point that you can get away with less recall rehearsal when you use spatial memory. Just because you can get away with it doesn't mean it's a best practice. So I tend to remind myself to write the stuff down even if it's memorized. It just leads to a better result. always. So that's what the big five is about, right? So you follow the effective review patterns and you integrate the effective review patterns with the big five. So we've got a video on the big five. We don't need to go through it right now, but it's very, very essential to have that reading, writing, speaking, and listening as part of what you do as part of your review, your recall rehearsal. Otherwise, you're just not going to get as good as results as you could have. And the thing is it's fun, it's rewarding, it's part of your practice, it strengthens your brain, it strengthens you as an individual. You can work on your penmanship, you just get to grow. Growing is amazing. So why not do it? Why not do it? All right. Austin says, anyone ever make a mnemonic for cognitive biases to keep them on the tip of the tongue? No, but I'm thinking of doing something about memorizing the cognitive biases. That's a great idea. And I've had that thought myself. Magus, good morning to you, my friend. Thanks for being here. Jurglem's here. Awesome. Good to see you. We were just mentioning your amazing Memory Palace this morning. I don't know if you were here to catch that, but I was singing the praises of your engagement and how, you discovered 3 new Memory Palaces, I think you said, and bam, there they are in our group. And so let's encourage more people to make sure they say yes to the mastermind when they join the masterclass so that you get that extra level of engagement and comradeship and just amazing stuff that's only possible in that way with the dojo and so forth. So Shane says, going to start the masterclass before mathematics. Very excited and understand why the fun yet disciplined methods will push brain ops to better connectivity. It's going to help organize things. Yeah, great point, Shane. Because it is exactly this. You're going to actually experience deep structural change in your brain, neuroplasticity, right? We want to do it consistently enough so that the transformation is as permanent enough. Now, there's no permanence. An unworked muscle will weaken, right? So we've got to work it consistently over time. But when you get that deep structural change enough, I don't want to bog people down with the science because sometimes it's too hard for some people to get to science. But that's where the evil Dr. Forget has your soul. Get into the brain science. It's really, really great. And if you need an introduction that will keep the evil Dr. Forget away, the brain, David Eagleman. I'm hoping to get him on the podcast, and we'll see what can happen there, because this is a great book. It's really accessible, really engaging, help you learn a lot about neuroplasticity and just how easy it is to change the structure of your brain. But it's the long-term exercise that matters. Same thing with the gym, with your body and so forth. So that's good. That's good. Stefan says, great. Thanks a lot. Well, you're welcome, Stefan. But back to Shane's thing about organizing things. When you have those neuroplastic changes in the brain, you'll automatically organize things better because you'll perceive them better. So when you encode while listening, for example, you'll know where it's most likely to go in your general association and your specific association, which is very, very powerful to have that ability. It's part of ars combinatoria, which is, the silent technique that I'm going to develop some more things around in the future. Aries says, what got me hooked was the amount of info memory champions could remember. I thought, why not use it for college? Many others say that it doesn't work for science, engineering, math on forums and such. Worry about those others, right? It doesn't work often because they're using the techniques that the memory champions use. Understand, the memory champions are great. They're inspiring, they're demonstrations of what's possible, but they're using an approach for memorizing information you probably wouldn't normally memorize to forget it after you get the prize. So this is a different skill. But when you learn how to scale for knowledge and you have encoding properly, you have effective review patterns, and you use the big five, well, then you can do it. And I would argue that you could do even better because it's going to become integrated in your being and you become a better person who acts better in the world. But who acts better in the world because they can memorize multiple decks of cards? I don't want to point my finger at anybody, but there's quite a few impressive memory champions who, haven't actually started charities or, anything profound. They'd rather go to the pub. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's not a great proof of concept that somehow these abilities lead to you being a better professional, because we don't see that in evidence. What we see in evidence is that it's a skill that is developed and it leads to competition. And think of it like weightlifters. The guys and the girls who can lift massive pounds, they're not necessarily healthy just because they can pull off that. they're not necessarily great entrepreneurs or great visionary thinkers just because they can do that in their worlds. It's the same thing in memory, right? But you don't have to be a memory competitor or a memory champion to take just modest amounts of information to become a world-leading expert in your field, or even just a better person in your life, right? You really, really, Aries, you can do this, and you don't have to have this kind of voluminous numbers and words and playing cards in your head. I just think playing cards are great for developing speed of association and working on retention over time and being able to create associations faster. Other than that, like, who cares? When I went and competed, yeah, great. I did really good. I totally surprised myself. Doing half as well as a person with 2 Guinness World Records is quite something, especially when I was hungover, my body was filled with pain, and I was jet lagged. But who cares at the end of the day? What matters is that I can teach from my mind and remember stuff, and just like when I'm in a debate or when I'm in a conversation, not only do I remember what people said, but then I remember other things to connect it with, and that becomes leadership. That becomes contribution at a higher level, so long as you keep your ego in check and you don't become an ass. And that can happen too, right? And quite frankly, when that happened recently, I just asked people, did I just come off as an ass with this? And they were like, no, you did this exactly right, right? And it's just that way. So if you're going to be a person of learning, you're going to be in these situations where you need to stand up for what's true, and your memory will help you. And it's not just your memory, but it's your focus, your concentration. It's your ability to actually listen deeply, deeper than anyone else, because you're able to juggle broad expanses of time that unfold as you're listening and mix and match, compare, contrast in real time, and you will be at the top of your game. So be inspired by the memory competitions, but understand that it's a different game. We're talking about the ancient art of memory here. We're talking about the stuff that people use to memorize books, to really become their best possible selves in knowledge, in language, in expression, in rhetoric, in persuasion, in being really, really at the top of their game in the intellectual arts, the arts that matter, that really make a contribution over time to the survival of the species. And the competitors are definitely part of that because they inspire me so much. All right. Major says, Christian, our Bierkowski poet. Yes, indeed. That was great. Speaking of the mastermind group, if you're in it, then you get to have these wonderful videos from Christian. He's memorizing poetry and stuff. And it's not just that he memorizes poetry, but he writes great stuff. And when he memorizes the stuff of other people, he makes great choices. So it's like our resident curator of the awesome. Thank you, Christian, for that. And speaking of Christian, he says, yes, I write everything down and make images for the keywords. It sticks better. Awesome, awesome. Tina says, Dr. Metivier, on an average day, how many palaces will you create and how many will you use? Wow, well, I don't live any average days. But let me, without answering that, let me put some thought into a meaningful answer to that, because the answer might really surprise you. First of all, being that I don't have average days in my life, but it might be more and less than you imagine. But let me put some thought into that and preview it. Give a little promo for the talk to come, the fuller answer to your question. I try to generally think about the rule of threes, but the larger, more conceptual answer is they're all there because everything is in space. And the more integrated they are, the more they are in play, even when they aren't. And this has to do with a principle called the luminous detail, and it has to do with Pareto's principle and Price's law, or the 80-20 rule, and so forth. So it's meaningless to put a number on it, because what matters is the total of the field, right? And how much focus is in which place, and the way that you till the field, the garden of your memory. So I hope that answers it in a way that's moderately meaningful. And thank you for setting the stage for an answer to come. I love that. All right. So Ryan's Internet Adventure says, I totally support more reading and listening as a means of recall rehearsal. What I meant is you can get away with less is that it means you can keep reading and more. Awesome. Thumbs up to that. If you haven't hit that thumbs up button yet, boom, let the robots know that humans care. And if you're not subscribed to this channel, get subscribed. If you don't have the memory improvement kit that I offer with the 4 free videos and 3 little ebooks there. Actually, they're not that little. Go to magneticmarymethod.com/YT. And Shane says, thanks for the feedback. My pleasure. Christian says, just ordered The Brain. Awesome. Yeah, so another shout out to David Eagleman, The Brain, The Story of You. I love this. This is amazing. Let's see. I'm going to read it again because it was that good. Aries says, so do you remember things automatically or do you have to search through the palace each time? Aries, if you are searching through your memory palaces, you're not using the magnetic memory method. There's a time for searching for things in memory palaces, maybe, but you actually don't want to be doing that. So get the training, make sure you put it into action. Austin says, Rick Hanson's book, Buddha's Brain, is a great book on the subjective experience of plasticity. Awesome. I'm going to need to look into that. Very ambitious title, given that Buddha's brain is probably irretrievable, but I love it. Christian says, love that answer. I don't live any average days. So good. I agree. Awesome. Yes, well, I suspect you don't either, brother. So let's not live average days. Let's not at all. Philippa is here. Hello. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Philippa or Philippe. I guess it's Philippa. Love that name. Either way, thanks for saying hello. Let's carry on here. So, and again, thanks everybody. 19K subscribers. Wow, who would have thought? Really appreciate that. And share this stuff around so that we can build this community, have more engaging live streams with more people, and keep the mnemonics renaissance growing, because this is about our future. This is about the survival of the species. It's not just, humdrum, let's learn some stuff, guys, and remember it. This is about making knowledge and what makes humans great survive and thrive in the future, even if the technology figures a way to be cool to us in the long term, which it might. But let's get together. Let's make it happen. All right, so note-taking is also great. Down in the description below, you'll find a link to a full training on note-taking, the podcast, the blog. It's all there. Some pictures of my notebooks for you. Record live lectures. Like, you don't have to memorize in real time if you don't want to. You can actually go back, take notes, and encode from the recordings and your notes of the recordings. Very, very powerful thing to do. So there's some tips for you once you have your memory techniques in place. As a general point, more memory palaces in use equals more ability to work with more information. So if you want more, if you're that kind of Faust spirit where you just want it all, give me the world, right? Give me more information. Well, then you're going to want to remember more. And the number one best way to remember more is to use that beautiful free resource called spatial memory to have more memory palaces so you can work with more information. The more you know, the more you can know. It's really, really important. And remember, leaders, like if you don't want to be a leader of your family, of your community, of your workplace or whatever, that's okay. But at least be a leader of yourself. Leaders read and remember the big lessons, and they do it with sufficient granular details. So that means you got to sometimes let certain things go. You don't have to remember it all. Less often makes more space for more when you collaborate in space and time. And that's ultimately the thing, and gets back to the big 5. You've got to collaborate with what you learn, because it'll help you learn more, and it'll actually give you more memory palaces. It'll give you more space in which for all that information so that it can grow through collaboration, which is what we're doing right now. I get to know more of you, you get to know more of me, we collaborate more, we start to have more in-jokes, we have references to certain things. People like William pitches in, shares different things or mentions different things that already exist when I'm engaged and busy, and Christian says things, and other people, when they show up, they say things, and we grow as a community, we collaborate, and that actually makes more space for learning, because you're remembering something, you're remembering a detail, and you're bringing it forward as an act of collaboration. So survival of the fittest, right? We don't need to compete with each other. We can collaborate and we can compete at the same time. So, I'm always thinking, who's going to be my successor, my competitor, and how can I help? That's why I have all my competition, so to speak, on the podcast if they say yes. right? Because it's just so healthy to collaborate, even if we're competing, the other people who train memory. And it's like, you've got to do that too. You've got to debate people who don't agree with you. You've got to collaborate with them to come to new conclusions, or to fill in the things that you don't know, or that you don't know that you don't know, right? That they might know, or even just to confirm that they're still wrong, Like, you've got to collaborate with them as part of competing with them. And we see so many great things like that happening on the internet, and we want to preserve it. We want to save it. And part of loving freedom is conserving what is true and right. And we do it in real time as much as possible. So what that means is we need to focus on the big ideas. We need to identify the big ideas. And so the more that we know, the more we can know, but we also can see more of what is worth knowing, and we can preserve more of what's worth preserving. And we can also be open to things that might challenge what we thought was worth preserving. But we need to remember what we hear, and we need to use those tips that we talked about today. And all of this means really being open to new evidence. It means balancing theorizing about stuff with actually practice, so that theory becomes knowledge, it becomes known. And you got to embrace the opportunities to correct course. So, we talked about free will last time, and William said that he had some things to say about that. And I'm like open to new things, to reconsider what I said about free will there. And anytime. As long as it's not done on an anonymous basis, where I was invited to do a debate on free will. And it was hilarious, because the person said that they would only debate in an anonymous way. And I said, well, I don't have any free will in saying no to that, because I will not debate somebody who doesn't have the pride enough in their ideas to attach it to their name on their driver's license and identity cards and so forth. I don't have that free will. But if you have free will, then you can change your mind and put your name there and show up to the debate. So what better evidence of the absence of that dude's free will than the fact that he didn't change and put his name to his opinions and show up? And the only answer was, he has his reasons. Well, no, sir. If you really have free will, put your name on it and let's go, because you don't. And you proved it better than I ever could. Better than I ever could. Jurgelum says, oh, it was 3 memory palaces. Okay, so I got it right. Excellent. So, yeah, we got to embrace opportunities to correct course. And look, I'm aware of my own stubbornness. So I just love to confront it, change it where it needs to be changed. And a key example, I always talk about apps. Always. Is it possible? Idris Sogai, yesterday released on the Magnetic Memory Method podcast, changing my mind about certain things. But, we'll see how it goes. And I think he's really gotten the closest to making something cool that I've seen. And I hope more cool things come, because I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. And I'm open to it. I've had a wireframe for the Magnetic Memory Method app for a long time now, a couple of years now, and never finished it because it just doesn't seem true to what I think might be possible. So I'm open to it, and I'm embracing opportunities like crazy. The thing with an app is that if you really want to do it right, well, first, the idea has to make sense. It has to be true in terms of the outcome it creates. And then you really, to do it right, you want to have some funding to take it to scale. So I want to be able to have something that I can actually get behind, I'm excited about, because it's creating results for people. And I want to be able to sell it first, to see that there's an audience for it, and then show it to investors and say, look, we made this many sales with this. We need this budget in order to take it to scale, and then go from there. And that's the way to play that game. And that's the way I've been playing it. And we'll see where it goes. Looks like I might be taken in other directions by the great unified field, but we'll see. All right. So before I get into the chat here, let me give you some guidance here. Create at least one memory palace today. I don't care if you got dozens, create a new one. And if you don't have any, create one today. Don't let too much time pass before you jump into this beautiful, wonderful skill, this tradition that goes back thousands of years, that is deeply encoded in your brain, whether you want it to be or not, because you have spatial memory, you have spatial mapping. You can dive into this. You can unlock the vast powers that exist in your mind right now. All you got to do is create one memory palace. I'm pitching you on it. I don't care if you take my course or not. Figure it out. Get it done. I think you'd be benefited if you did take the course. It's at magneticmarymethod.com/YT. Grab it and go through it with diligence. Get a piece of paper and do the exercise. If I don't see your homework, well, that's up to you. But some people do, some people don't. It's really your thing. It's for you to do. But just do it. Get it done, whichever way that you do it. And pick something meaningful to memorize, something where you would say, damn, my life is better because that's in memory. It might be a poem. It might be the dates of your favorite author. It might be some mathematical formula. It might be a foreign language phrase. You always wanted to say something cool in Latin or whatever, or Greek, whatever. Pick something that's meaningful so that you get a dopamine spike and you just victory. You feel like, yeah, I got this. I understand this. And then just continue and go forth and memorize. So let's grab the chat, and then I'm going to share with you some of the 2019 plans that I have. Plans subject to change, but these are generally, to go back to Tina's question before, the rule of threes is in effect, and I like to focus on that. Really, really powerful number for me. As the Germans say, alle guten Dinge sind drei. Speaking of memorizing phrases that are meaningful to you and create a pleasure response in your brain, that would be one of them, along with wir atmen tief ohne Angst, which means we breathe deeply without fear. I always loved that one. Anyway, so let me check on the chat. These are the 3 things I suggest for you to do to take action to get results today. Do them now. Starting now. Already start to think, what could be a memory palace? What could be 3 memory palaces? Ryan says, hey, Anthony, do you do recall rehearsal on a schedule? How do you determine when something is in long-term memory? When the info in a memory palace is in long-term, do you reuse the palace? Let me answer these in reverse order. Reusing palaces sometimes. It's not my preference, but yes, I do reuse them sometimes. How do I determine when something is in long-term memory? Let me ask you, how would you determine if it was in long-term memory? Wouldn't you know? I'm not even sure how to answer that. You determine it when it's in long-term memory when you know when it's in long-term memory. But to put more meaning in that, I was tired a couple live streams ago. I shouldn't do them in the evening because I'm often tired. I'm not at my best, but I want to hit other time zones, to honor the world. And I was trying to get Megaston Topos of Pentagar Kori, but I was tired, right? So it took me a while. And then I looked, oh yeah, Megatron. And, I went through all the images and I got it back, right? So was it in long-term memory or was it not? I was tired. So what does long-term memory mean? Let me throw the question to you, Ryan. What the heck, how would you know? You'll know it's in long-term memory if you get it back, right? Whether you get it back with a memory palace or memory techniques or whether you get it back without it. It's in long-term memory if it's in long-term memory. I don't think that the distinction between short-term memory and long-term memory is in any way meaningful or useful for us. I don't know how it'll perform on Google if I go on long diatribes about long-term and short-term memory, but these terms are not useful for us. We know that short-term memory has a meaning that is useful for certain ways of doing scientific analysis and research, but in practical form, if Alex Mullen can memorize a deck of cards in less than 17 seconds or wherever he is now, I don't track his adventures to the nth degree, but if he can do that, there's clearly something wrong with the idea of short-term memory. And if I can be tired and forget my favorite phrase in the world, Megaston Topos Sapantagar Kori, or nearly forget because I did get it back, but then with just some images there that are only half there really, I can't quite remember all of them, but I can still get it back. There's something wrong with our idea of what long-term memory is. So try not to get caught in these terms. They're beautiful, but they're terms. And to your first question, do I do recall rehearsal on a schedule? Yes, but the schedule changes. Remember the rule of threes, my friend. There's no magic number, though. So you can look up Dominic O'Brien's rule of 5 and just take it with a grain of salt. And don't create attachments to magic numbers. There is no magic number. The number is, do you remember it? Okay? Then if you did, great. If you didn't, do some more. Do some more. And reflect. As I did. I reflected after. I reflected in real time. I felt like, oh man, people are going to think I'm a moron here. I can't remember my favorite phrase. I'm so tired, right? Not only a moron as a memory dude, but a moron as someone so passionate about helping the world that he shows up when he's tired just to serve part of the other world. Like, it's some of my entrepreneur friends are just like, man, you're doing too much here. But at the same time, what else am I going to do? Like, I'm just having fun, right? So I love it, but it clearly works even under duress. And you've got to just pick your battles in this and just be modest and be humble. It's just memory, and it's just your mind, and you want to have the mind that you want to have. So reflect on what happens and just be on the adventure. It's an adventure at the end of the day, and that's why I often say in my videos that I help mature learners of every age who want to take mental adventures. That's what this ultimately is. We're on the high seas of the brain, your brain, you are, and you get to. All right, so Aries says, I want to place problems in stations like math, engineering problems. Do you think this is too much for one station? They are maybe half a page each. I'd love to work with you closer, Aries, on that. Get yourself involved at a deeper level and show me what you're talking about so I can see it. But in general, here's the thing. Just do it. See what happens. You have the answer to the question in your practice, in the action. When you need more help, take it one step at a time. Study memory techniques more, implement more of them, and practice with information that improves your life. So, if this improves your life, then just let your desired outcome be your guide. Hop yourself up, get relaxed, get in, and rock and roll. Philippe says, I fear to forget my memory palaces and all that I've placed inside them. Do I have tips? Should I build it progressively? Is there any practical way to memorize all the Latin endings and conjugations? Wow, okay, great questions. So first of all, fear is the mind killer. That's a quote from Frank Herbert in the great novel Dune. Read Dune. Or at least remember, fear is the mind killer. Just relax. Practice relaxation if you need to. And just get rid of fear. Fear is useless. One of the ways to get rid of fear is to meditate and to really stop having average days, as we talked about earlier, and just be excited and find it in you. How exactly to do that? There's no the answer is so clear and so obvious that it's not obvious or clear at all. Just dive in and work on your life and make memory part of it. Adolfo is here. Hello, Adolfo. Great to see you. We were chatting. We were mentioning you today a few times, and now you have manifested. Excellent. Always good to see you. But Philippe, fear is just get rid of the fear. Should you build it progressively? Absolutely. You should never stop building or creating or manifesting and realizing your memory palace network. Never stop. If you stop, then you're not doing the magnetic memory method. It's just as simple as that. Which is also okay. You don't have to do the magnetic memory method. But the magnetic memory method has, as one of its creeds, always make new memory palaces. Why? Because your spatial memory is your number one asset. Your spatial mapping is your number one asset. It is the memory skill that binds them all. Like, it's that Lord of the Rings level epic to be doing. And you'll see it, you'll feel it. And if you don't see it and feel it, it's because you're not doing it. It's just that simple. So yes, progressively. Is there any practical way to memorize all the Latin endings and conjugations? Oh yes, my friend, there is. It's more than practical. It's so damn practical and common sense that some people will say, well, that's too easy. I ain't going to do it. We see that from time to time. And so build the skills, dive in, figure it out. Happy to help. I've got a book on memorizing Latin that'll get you started, and probably going to do the second edition, and we'll go into all that stuff. So don't be disappointed if you read the book that it doesn't dive into that exact topic, because I always thought when I made my first books that people would have the wherewithal to sort of connect certain dots that I didn't connect explicitly for them. My bad. But this is part of developing. When you talk about building things progressively, I'm building this training and teaching progressively and improving it. We haven't gotten to the Latin book yet, but some of them are in second editions and they may need to go into third. I'm not the only person who does second editions and thirds when it comes to this sort of stuff. And it's just a part of knowledge. It grows progressively and so forth. But yes, there's a practical way. It's easier than you think. And when I've suggested it to other students with Latin and so forth, they've either jumped in, got it done quickly, or they just said, well, that's just too simple and easy. I won't do it. It happens. It takes all kinds. Believe me, there's sometimes things that are just too damn simple that I can't get myself to do either. But I'm working on it, and great things are coming every time I change my tune on the things I'm stubborn about. So don't think I'm preaching here. I also hear myself teaching myself, and there you go. Just take action. Find the way to take action. It's the number one secret of all things. So Shane says, I like that. If someone is playing the call-out game with their anonymity in front of others, then likely that shows probable agenda and conflicts without honest self-committal while hiding. Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, it's kind of cool on the internet that we can be anonymous, but we're paying a bigger price for it than we should. I think the blockchain is going to change that, though, if the blockchain takes hold. Shane says, stay strong and keep pushing for next level, persistence, then perfection. Yeah. So speaking of persistence and perfection, I think perfection is a mountain that reveals that there are yet more mountains to come. So I progress towards the mountains of progress. Let's just close with a couple of notes here on what's coming next and the themes for 2019. And if you want to stick around and ask more questions, please feel free to do so. And if not, well, then this is the closing moments. And I know that sometimes leads to a mass exodus. But if you want to stick around, focus number one for 2019 is more masterclass updates. So right now we have this new course. Let's see if I can move this up a little bit. There we go. Visualization Mastery. And this course is going to be very, very powerful. So if you're in the masterclass, it's already there for you. Also, there's a new video in the master plan on the pillar technique to really build that out for you. And obviously the mastermind stuff comes out monthly. But if you're in the masterclass, please check out Visualization Mastery. It's not necessarily in the perfect place right now. It's on the worksheets page. And I'd love to know what you think about it, because I'm working towards how exactly I want to do the 2.0 versions of a lot of the courses. I'm not even sure if I need to do 2.0 versions of all of them, but there's also a couple more courses that come to mind for the masterclass, and just generally the new style, because there's a new course coming on critical thinking, the rhetoric tradition in memory, and some of these cool things. And so I kind of want to think through what was working best for you all, and do it for you, because I know what kind of courses work for me, and I know what kind of courses work for you, because we've had so many tremendous successes with the courses the way that they are. But that doesn't mean they can't be better. I'm just very cautious of, the old, if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of thing. So that's why I prefer the new, as opposed to just making changes to the old when they're not necessarily broken. So that's there, and I'm very, very excited about it. But I don't want to be excited in advance until some of you have taken it and let me know. The second, we skipped a page. The second thing that's coming is more podcast interviews with people like yourself. So this is Marno Herman. He's a masterclass student, 1,200 digits, recited, I think it was 10 minutes and 15 seconds. Bam! To do that many digits. So I want to hear more of these stories. We've got a bunch of masterclass student interviews in the bag. I want more. If you're getting results, or even if you just want to hop on, as long as you're in good standing in the masterclass or the mastermind or both, and you want to jam on some topics, I think this is one of the great things that we can do. And I was really inspired to see 89 shares on this. Thank you, everybody who shared this so much. Keep sharing it if you haven't already, because this is incredible. It's so inspiring. And we dive deep into what it is. So it's not just like, hey, Marno, great success. But I ask him, what did you do? How'd you do it? What was the before and after? What's better? Where's this going? And so forth. And so all of that makes a lot more sense if you already know things like the major, if you already know memory palaces. But it can also give you more insight and more fuel for when you do get to know those things. And so that's more of what I want to do. The extent to which I'm going to succeed, I don't know yet, but we do have some already recorded. And also, I'm always calling out for people to share their success and get on there. We got to get Adolfo on. He's just saying here, I create at least 5 palaces daily. Some have 5 stations, some 10 plus. Some are virtual, some are real. I cannot, in caps, go to bed without creating a minimum of 5. It's easy. Some palaces are items that I place 5 items from top to bottom. Great. Yeah, I mean, there's lots and lots of ways to do it. I want to hear more. I want to make sure that, we preserve this activity. That's one of the most important things. It's not just about making more stuff. It's also about preserving the knowledge, preserving the action, preserving the insights. And so on that matter, I want to focus on more Memory Palace innovations. And so this is Christian's. I don't know if he's still here, but this is an innovation based on something I shared that I innovated from, and we want more of that. And obviously this needs to be in the mastermind community, but a lot more focus on the innovations, making more innovations, exploring them, inspiring you all to do them, share what you do with them. This is Christian's that he shared. And wow, there's no end to what we can come up with if we continue to practice, if we study, if we implement, and if we practice with the information that improves our lives. So those are the 3 focuses. If you want to support this show just in a little interesting way, you'll see on these things below me, magneticmarymethod.com/swag. This is Barry and his mug. Really appreciate your support, Barry. And also Maricella has one here. Really appreciate Maricella's support, always taking her mug out into public to talk about, whoa, what am I doing? The Memory Palace and the Magnetic Memory Method. Again, Barry. And this is Adolfo's, I believe, if memory serves, under the Ninja Machine. So thank you so much for you guys supporting this show. When you get one of these at magneticmarymethod.com/swag, send me your picture. I know I'm asking a lot. Send me your picture either with you in the mug or someplace in the world, and I'll send you a free video that is available to supporters of this show. And you can get a t-shirt too. That works. But there's a reason why it's a mug, and that's because there's a special memory technique just for mugs. And I take it to some next level areas too, which you'll know about when you get the video. So there's some training for you. Real low investment. There's a coupon on there. It's not support in some radical sense. It's just a cool way to help spread the word, to help make it real in your hand, to remind you of your commitment to improve your memory. And so, again, create memory palaces, memorize something that's going to improve your life, and make it happen. Make it real to yourself, and keep on cherishing that beautiful thing that is your brain, because you only get one, and you might as well make it magnetic. So thanks everybody for being here. I really appreciate every minute that we get to spend together. A travel mug. Thanks for that suggestion, Adolfo. I'll see if that company does it. As we know, I need to talk to that company. But it is a great idea. Travel mug. Let me see what they can do. Or maybe I got to go to a different company. It'd also be cool to have like I guess people don't use mouse pads anymore, do they? And anyway, it's not like a giant economic revenue generating incentive. It's more about you reminding yourself of your commitment to memory and my ability to give you an additional training because you've shown your support, your engagement, and your care for the future of your own mind. And that's what this is really all about. So with that said, if you haven't got the free course yet, well, I'm not going to, question your whatever. I don't even know what I would question, but be involved. Grab that course at magneticmarymethod.com/YT. And listen, thanks for being here. Thanks for your amazing engagement. Thank you for keeping the memory tradition alive by absorbing it, putting it into practice, and sharing it with others. Always teach what you've learned to other people, and keep yourself engaged with yourself, because you are the greatest person that there ever is. I really not only mean that because I believe it, it's because I know it. It's because I know about the miracle of the brain, and it is the story of you and what a miracle you are. So read David Eagleman and come back for more, because soon we are going to do a deep dive into Dr. Bruno First. You can remember, he believed it, I believe it, and we're going to do all that it takes to convince you, even if I have to do it from a wheelchair or a hospital bed, That's my commitment, and I hope you'll keep me accountable to that. And away we go. So thank you, Stefan. Thank you, Tina. Thank you, Adolfo. Thank you, William. Thank you, everybody who was here today. Shane, thanks for being new. Austin, great questions. And Aries, great questions. And just everybody, good to see some old familiar names I haven't seen for a while. And until we have a chance to speak again, come visit me at magneticmemorymethod.com and keep yourself magnetic. Bye-bye.